The lights of Tottenham Hotspur's stadium glimmered over the field as Cleveland fans in orange and brown filled the seats, their breath visible in the crisp London air. It was supposed to be a showcase. The Browns' chance to prove their offensive rebuild was finally coming together. But just hours before kickoff, whispers spread across the stands and social media. Shedeur Sanders wasn't starting. The excitement turned into disbelief. Fans scrolling through the Browns' official lineup saw a name they didn't expect: rookie quarterback Dillon Gabriel, slotted in above the young phenom who had captured national attention since his arrival in Cleveland. For weeks, reports out of Berea had teased the possibility that Shedeur was ready to take command, ready to silence the critics, ready to finally show the NFL that Deion Sanders' son could lead not just with hype, but with precision, poise, and grit. Instead, he was benched and standing on the sideline, wearing his helmet, but no visible frustration. Shedeur Sanders watched as the Browns' offense took the field, led by someone else. At first, it seemed like just another strategic choice from head coach Kevin Stefanski, a decision he described later as situational. But as the first half unfolded, that strategy began to look more like a gamble gone wrong. The Browns' offense sputtered. Missed reads, fumbled exchanges, and broken timing routes left fans wondering what exactly Stefanski had seen in practice to justify the move. Across the broadcast, commentators couldn't resist the storyline. "Where's Shedeur?" one analyst asked mid-game. This was supposed to be his coming-out moment, the perfect stage. Social media exploded. Posts flooded X, Instagram, and TikTok. Why isn't Shedeur starting? Is Stefanski protecting him or punishing him? And the harshest comment of all, the Browns just embarrassed themselves on an international stage. Because as the game wore on, the embarrassment wasn't just about losing yardage. It was about perception. This wasn't just any quarterback controversy. This was a headline waiting to be written. The Browns benched their star prospect in London and pay the price. Fans back home couldn't understand it. After all, Shedeur had dominated the previous week's practice sessions. Local reports from insiders like Tony Grossi and Mary Kay Cabot had hinted that Shedeur's timing, pocket awareness, and accuracy were improving fast, especially under pressure. Even opposing scouts noted how composed he looked during scrimmages, reading defenses with veteran-level patience. Everything pointed toward him being ready. So when the cameras caught Deion Sanders in attendance, his face half covered by sunglasses, watching silently from the VIP box, the story gained a whole new edge. The man who had built a brand around believing in your own was watching his son sidelined in front of millions while his team faltered. And when the final whistle blew, the scoreboard told the story clearly. Browns 10, Vikings 27. The stadium emptied quietly, and in post-game interviews, Coach Stefanski faced the heat. Reporters pressed him repeatedly. Why bench Shedeur? Was it performance-related? Was he injured? Stefanski's reply was calm, but cryptic. "We made the decision based on what we thought gave us the best chance to win today." But the look in his eyes told another story, one that the media wouldn't stop chasing for days to come. Because back in the locker room, sources described the atmosphere as tense. Players were quiet, some were confused, and Shedeur, he didn't lash out. He didn't complain. He simply told one teammate, "My time's coming." And maybe that calm confidence, that poise under public scrutiny, was what set off the next storm that would shake Cleveland to its core. By the time the Browns landed back in Cleveland, the headlines had already turned brutal. Stefanski's gamble backfires in London. Fans demand answers over Shedeur Sanders' bench decision. And the one that hit hardest. The Browns finally find star power. Then sit him. Cleveland Talk Radio was a firestorm. Callers raged. Former players weighed in. And within hours, national shows picked up the story, framing it as yet another example of the Browns getting in their own way. ESPN's analysts debated it for an entire segment. One host said, "You don't draft a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, a guy with this much media weight, this much confidence, this much buzz, and then let him sit during an international showcase. It's a branding disaster, plain and simple." But it wasn't just about branding anymore. It was about trust. Inside the Browns' locker room, a quiet divide began to take shape. Some veterans backed Stefanski, saying the rookie needed more time. They respected the coach's discipline and his old-school approach to earning snaps. Others, though, saw things differently. One player, speaking anonymously, put it this way: "Everybody saw the same thing in practice. Shedeur's ready. He's sharp, he's confident, and he commands the huddle. Guys believe in him. So when he's not starting, it makes you wonder what's really going on." Behind closed doors, whispers spread that Stefanski had clashed with the front office earlier in the week about the starting lineup. Sources claimed ownership wanted Shedeur to play in London, that it was supposed to be the Browns' global marketing moment, introducing their new face of the franchise to the world. But Stefanski held firm. He wanted control of his football team. He wanted decisions made by football logic, not marketing strategy. And in doing so, he lit a fuse. By Monday morning, video clips from the game had gone viral. One moment in particular, Shedeur standing calmly near the sideline, hands folded, watching the offense struggle, became a symbol of restraint and focus. Fans flooded social media with supportive comments. "He's got that Dion patience, calm under chaos. This man is ready, and they're holding him back. Stefanski just benched the future." It wasn't just fans anymore. Players' families, influencers, and former NFL stars joined the chorus. Even Deion Sanders himself, when approached by a reporter, gave a short but loaded statement. "My son's a professional. He's always been prepared. That's all I'll say." To the media, that wasn't silence. That was a warning shot. As the week progressed, the Browns organization found itself in full damage control mode. Team PR tried to reframe the story, releasing statements about development, team strategy, and long-term goals. But those words rang hollow when the team's next practice rolled around, and Stefanski once again split first-team reps between Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur. To the players watching from the sidelines, it was clear this wasn't just about performance. This was about ego, control, and power. And that kind of tension, it doesn't stay quiet for long. One veteran player reportedly told a friend after practice, "The locker room's weird right now. You can feel it. It's like everyone's waiting for something to explode." Meanwhile, sports reporters noticed something even more telling. Shedeur wasn't hiding. He was showing up early, putting in extra work, running drills on his own, shaking hands with staff, talking to teammates. Every move he made screamed leadership. Every interaction looked like a silent challenge. "Bench me if you want. I'll be ready when you can't anymore." And Cleveland fans? They rallied behind it. The hashtag #StartShedeur began trending across X and Instagram. Edits of his college highlights mixed with clips of the London game circulated online, with captions like "The Browns benched a star" and "Free Shedeur." By Friday, reporters were openly asking if Stefanski's job security was at risk. The question wasn't whether Shedeur would start. It was how much longer the coach could hold out before being forced to. Inside the facility, Stefanski doubled down. He told his staff, "We don't coach by Twitter. We coach by football." But in today's NFL, where branding, cameras, and influence shape every narrative, those words sounded outdated. Because whether Stefanski liked it or not, the world wasn't just watching the Browns anymore. They were watching Shedeur Sanders versus Kevin Stefanski. And only one of them was winning the PR war. By the next week, the Cleveland Browns were no longer just another AFC team. They were a full-blown reality show. Reporters camped outside the practice facility. Cameras tracked every move, every handshake, every sidelong glance between Kevin Stefanski and Shedeur Sanders. In the locker room, it was fractured in ways no stat sheet could measure. Veterans who'd kept quiet in London began speaking up. One defensive captain reportedly told an assistant, "If we're going to lose, at least lose with the guy who can make plays." The offense was equally divided. Some players, tired of conservative play calling and the same predictable rotations, want a spark. Others still backed Stefanski, saying that discipline mattered more than drama. But the biggest shift came when wide receiver Amari Cooper, usually calm and reserved, made a subtle but powerful move. After practice, he walked straight over to Shedeur, tapped him on the shoulder, and said loud enough for cameras to catch, "Keep your head. Your time's coming." That one clip blew up online. Millions of views, thousands of comments. Fans called it the moment the locker room chose sides. Meanwhile, Kevin Stefanski tried to steady the ship. In press conferences, his tone was firm, almost defensive. He said, "We make lineup decisions based on preparation, not pressure. But his eyes told a different story. Tired, restless, aware that the noise outside the building had finally found its way in. Sports talk shows turned every segment into open mic therapy. One host said, "It's simple, Stefanski's coaching scared. He's protecting his job instead of unleashing his quarterback." Another added, "You can't keep a Ferrari in the garage and expect the crowd to stay patient." Every headline, every hot take chipped away at Stefanski's credibility. And while the coach tried to drown out the noise, Shedeur's star kept rising, without him even playing. Social media clips of Shedeur's practice throws, tight spirals, pinpoint accuracy started circulating. One video, showing him dropping a perfect 40-yard dime in warm-ups, went viral with the caption, "This is who's sitting on Cleveland's bench." Unreal. Fans began showing up to practices holding homemade signs. "Start number 14 now. We came for Shedeur, not excuses." Even the local media, normally cautious with criticism, started pressing Stefanski harder. "Coach, is this about development or about control?" one reporter asked. Stefanski paused, forced a smile, and said, "It's about doing what's best for the Cleveland Browns." But by then, no one believed that anymore. Because what was best for the Browns seemed obvious to everyone except him. Behind closed doors, front office meetings grew tense. Executives debated the optics of the situation. Ownership hated how the London trip had turned into a global embarrassment. Marketing teams reported drops in overseas merchandise sales. And one key executive, quietly but firmly, made the point that would define the coming week. "If we don't start Shedeur soon, we risk losing not just games, but the entire fan base." It was no longer just a football decision. It was a franchise-saving decision. Inside the locker room, Shedeur kept his cool. No complaints, no interviews, just focus. He shook hands with teammates, studied film, and even joked with the media about British coffee being too fancy. That composure, that effortless confidence, it reminded everyone of his father. And just like Deion Sanders used to say, "If you look good, you play good. If you play good, they pay good." Shedeur was the embodiment of that line. Even benched, he looked like a franchise quarterback. Meanwhile, reports began to surface that ownership was unhappy, not just with the London loss, but with how Stefanski handled the optics. They felt blindsided, believing Shedeur's benching had cost them both momentum and money. Jimmy Haslam, the team's owner, was said to have made a pointed comment during a meeting. "We didn't fly across the ocean to watch our brand sit on the sideline." That sentence spread through the organization like wildfire. Assistants whispered it, reporters repeated it, and when it reached the players, by midweek, you could feel in the air at practice the unease, the tension, the quiet anticipation that something big was about to break. Every time Shedeur threw a perfect pass, the sidelines buzzed. Every time the first-team offense stalled, eyes shifted towards Stefanski. The cameras captured everything, the forced smiles, the fake encouragement, the way players subtly gravitated toward Shedeur during water breaks. The story had moved beyond a single decision in London. It was now a power struggle, and everyone, from the locker room to the owner's box, knew it. The Browns weren't just embarrassed on the field. They were unraveling off it, and as the next game approached, the entire league waited to see one thing. Would Kevin Stefanski finally give in, or would his pride drag the Browns deeper into chaos? By the time the Browns landed back in Cleveland, the storm had followed them home. Airport paparazzi, angry fans waiting outside Berea, local radio hosts running open phone lines where every caller seemed to say the same thing. "Fire Stefanski. Start Shedeur." The message was deafening. And in the NFL, when the noise gets that loud, ownership listens. Behind closed doors, meetings stretched late into the night. Jimmy Haslam was furious, not just about the loss in London, but about how it looked. A national stage, millions watching, and the team's most marketable player sitting on the bench while the offense stalled. Executives showed Haslam's social media analytics. Mentions of Shedeur Sanders were up 400%. Mentions of Kevin Stefanski were up too, but for all the wrong reasons. The Browns had become a punchline again, and after years of rebuilding the brand, that was unforgivable. Haslam's voice, calm but cutting, reportedly echoed through the room. "We can't afford another year of this. Either we're all in on Shedeur, or we're back at square one." The writing was on the wall. Inside the locker room, you could sense the shift. Assistants who once backed Stefanski started keeping their distance. Veteran players whispered about how the coach had lost the room. Even team captains began pulling Shedeur aside privately, telling him to stay patient. His moment was coming. And through it all, Shedeur kept his poise. No public frustration, no emotional posts, just quiet confidence. During one practice session, he threw 5 straight touchdowns in red zone drills. Even the defensive players clapped. Someone muttered, "He's the real deal." The cameras caught it. The clip went viral again. By Thursday, reporters began speculating openly that Haslam had ordered Stefanski to start Shedeur in the next game. Stefanski brushed it off, calling it media noise. But everyone in the building knew. This wasn't noise, it was direction. The breaking point came Friday morning. Team meetings started as usual, but Stefanski arrived late, face tight, jaw clenched. He stood before the players and said, "I don't coach social media. I coach football, and I'll decide who plays." The room was silent. A few players exchanged glances. And then, from the back of the room, a voice, calm but unmissable, cut through the tension. "Then coach the best player." It was one of the team captains. Stefanski froze. He didn't respond. He just walked out. Within hours, the story leaked. Locker room turns on Stefanski. Players report growing divide over Sanders' decision. And then came the headline that ended it all. Kevin Stefanski fired after internal rift over quarterback decision. The Browns released a short statement thanking him for his leadership and professionalism. But everyone knew the truth. This wasn't about leadership. It was about a power struggle he couldn't win. When Shedeur took the field the following Sunday, the crowd erupted. Signs, chants, camera flashes. It felt less like a football game and more like a coronation. He completed his first pass, a tight 22-yard strike, and the stadium roared like they just won a playoff game. And in that moment, one thing became crystal clear. The Browns' embarrassment in London had rewritten the team's future. Kevin Stefanski was gone. Shedeur Sanders had arrived. And the NFL? It just got its newest storyline. One that no coach could control, no rumor could contain, and no amount of benching could silence. Because once the world saw Shedeur Sanders shine, there was no going back. Not for the Browns. Not for the league. Not for anyone.